Newton observations upon the prophecies of Daniel and the Apocalypse of St. John. Hail. What does hail mean? Woe to the crown of pride, to the drunkards of Ephraim, whose glorious beauty is a fading flower, which are on the head of the fat valleys of them that are overcome with wine. Behold, the Lord hath a mighty and a strong one, which as a tempest of hail and a destroying storm, as a flood of mighty waters overflowing, shall cast down to the earth with the hand. The crown of pride, the drunkards of Ephraim, shall be trodden under feet. Here the Assyrian army that desolated apostate Israel is likened to hail. Assyria were from the north. One important principle found in the Old Testament is that the punisher of God's people in the end gets punished too. For this reason, after apostate Israel gets pummeled by the hail of the Assyrian army, the Assyrians too receive hail and fire. And the Lord shall cause his glorious voice to be heard, and shall show the lightning down of his arm, with the indignation of his anger, and with the flame of a devouring fire, with scattering and tempest and hailstones. For through the voice of the Lord shall the Assyrian be beaten down, which smote with a rod. Isaiah chapter 30, verse 30 and 31. The prophet is describing the Assyrian invasion, likens it to a mighty hailstorm. Again, in describing the invasion of Gog and Magog, the prophet Ezekiel says, Thou shalt ascend and come like a storm. Thou shalt be like a cloud to cover the land. Thou and all thy bands and many people with thee. Hailstorms that fell upon Roman territory always came from the north, so this suggests that this invasion will be from the northern regions. The symbolism also suggests the destruction of the countryside, for the third part of trees was burnt up and all green grass. This also indicates that forests, pastures and crops will be destroyed by the invasion. Thirdly, it has hail and fire mingled with blood, denoting carnage or the slaughter both of beasts and people, and trees and grass are also representative of people. The prediction says a third, 1/3 of the trees and all green grass. The third that is mentioned throughout the trumpets applies to a third part of the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire after Constantine the Great was divided into the three parts. Hence the frequent remark a third part of men is an allusion to the third part of the empire which was under the scourge. This division of the Roman kingdom was made at the death of Constantine among his three sons, Constantius, Constantine II, and Constans. And Constantius possessed the east and fixed his residence at Constantinople, the metropolis of the empire. And Constantine II held Britain, Gaul, and Spain, and Constans held Illyricum and Africa and Italy. This hell is the time when the barbarians began to come from the north and attack the areas of the Roman Empire. Hail in this prophecy represents that they came to destroy from the cold lands of the north. Just like hail destroys the garden, so these warriors destroyed everything in their path. The first trumpet. Alexander Keith has justly remarked on the subject of this prophecy. None could elucidate the text more clearly or expound them more fully than the task has been accomplished by Edward Gibbon. The chapters of the skeptical philosopher that treat directly of the matter need but a text to be prefixed and a few unholy words to be blotted out to form a series of expository lectures on the 8th and 9th chapters of the book of Revelation of Jesus Christ. Little or nothing is left for the professed interpreter to do but to point to the pages of Gibbon. This is found in Uriah Smith's book, Daniel and Revelation. The first sore and heavy judgments which fell on Western Rome in its downward course was the war with the Goths under Alaric, who opened the way for later inroads. The death of Theodosius, the Roman Emperor, occurred in January AD 395, and before the end of the winter the Goths under Alaric were in arms against the empire. Hail and fire mingled with blood were cast upon the earth. The terrible effects of this Gothic invasion are represented as hail from the northern origins of the invaders, fire from the destruction by flame of both city and country, and blood from the terrible slaughter of the citizens of the empire by the bold and intrepid warriors. The first trumpet, the blast of the first trumpet, has its location about the close of the 4th century and onward, and refers to these desolating invasions of the Roman Empire under the Goths, and more specifically it was the Visigoths that made this invasion. And here we see the Gothic invasion under Alaric, how they spread, and they eventually ended up down here, where you can see it in the Visigoths near Portugal and Spain. After making this summary, Keith completes the picture by saying, the concluding sentence of this 33rd chapter of Gibbon's history is of itself a clear and comprehensive commentary, for in winding up his own description of this brief but most eventful period, he concentrates, as in a parallel reading, the sum of the history and the substance of the prediction. But the words which precede it are not without their meaning. The public devotion of the age was impatient to exalt the saints and martyrs of the Catholic Church on the altars of Diana and Hercules. The union of the Roman Empire was dissolved, its genius was humbled in the dust, and armies of unknown barbarians issued from the frozen regions of the north had established their victorious reign over the fairest provinces of Europe and Africa. And the last word, Africa, is the signal for the sounding of the second trumpet. The scene changes from the shores of the Baltic to the southern coast of the Mediterranean, or from the frozen regions of the north to the borders of burning Africa. And instead of a storm of hell being cast upon the earth, a burning mountain was cast into the sea. From AD 330, with the removal of government to Constantinople, started the demise of Rome, and the first trumpet covered the period from 395 AD to 410 AD. Revelation chapter 8, verses 8 to 9. And the second angel sounded, and as it were a great mountain burning with fire was cast into the sea, and the third part of the sea became blood. And the third part of the creatures which are in the sea and had life died, and the third part of the ships were destroyed. This symbolism suggests a power connected with the sea, an invasion by a sea power likened to a burning mountain. What does a mountain represent in prophecy? Scripture is clear that a mountain represents a kingdom. I am against thee, O destroying mountain, saith the Lord, which destroys all the earth. I will make thee a burnt mountain. Jeremiah 51:25. Behold, I am against thee, O destroying mountain, saith the Lord, which destroyeth all the earth. And I will stretch out mine hand upon thee, and roll thee down from the rocks, and will make thee a burnt mountain. Set ye up a standard in the land, blow the trumpet among the nations, prepare the nations against her. Call together against her the kingdoms of Ararat, Mini, and Ashenaz. Appoint a captain against her. Cause the horses to come up as the rough caterpillars. Prepare against the nations with the kings of the Medes, the captains thereof, and all the rulers thereof, and all the land of his dominion. And the land shall tremble and sorrow, for every purpose of the Lord shall be performed against Babylon, to make the land of Babylon a desolation without an inhabitant. Here we see that the destruction of Babylon is likened to a destroying mountain. And notice that there were four powers that came against Babylon. Kingdoms of Ararat, Mini, and Ashenaz, and Persia. So it took 4 powers to bring down Babylon, and it took 4 trumpets to bring down Western Rome. This is a judgment against Babylon. Through the agency of the invading confederated armies of at least 4 kingdoms, Babylon would become a burnt mountain. Confederacy of 4 means worldwide. It took a union of 4 to bring down Babylon. It took 4 trumpets to bring down Western Rome. It took 4 angels to bring down Eastern Rome. It took 4 angels or powers to bring down Muslim world in 1840. And the Confederacy of the United Nations to hold back radical Islam has taken the whole world, which is representative of 4. The sounding of the second trumpet evidently relates to the invasion and conquest of Africa and afterward of Italy by Genseric, king of the Vandals. His conquests were for the most part naval, and his triumphs were, as it were, a great mountain burning with fire cast into the sea. The next great invasion after Alaric was that of Genseric, at the head of the Vandals. His